Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video I'm going to be breaking down the lighting setups from my last film. If you haven't seen that yet, the link will be in the description to that, so please go check it out. But let's get right into it. So first thing I want to say is this project was a noir or neo-noir short. We were able to choose between the two, whether or not basically we wanted to do it in color, which is neo-noir, or black and white, which is traditional noir. The main thing was obviously getting this low light, hard, contrasty look. And so to get that look, there was a lot of things that I implemented that essentially give you this low light look that's got a lot of contrast while also keeping everything very clear and visible. So it's this balance between low light versus no light. And you want to kind of keep that balance so that everything is still visible while also being contrast. So let's just look at the shots and let me explain how I did that. All right, so jumping right in, let's look at this very first shot. This is literally the first shot of the film. So what's going on here? What do we have lighting setup wise? Well, if you watch the film, you notice that this main character walks in front of a street lamp, which we can see that's lighting up his hair right here. It's giving him this nice bright highlight and giving a little bit of an edge around the back and then also back here on his shoulder. But this is not the only light we're using here. What we're doing here is we're enhancing a practical light. So what's also happening is right off screen here, we've got another light that's hitting him from the front that's giving him all of this front lighting, basically lighting up all of this and then the front part of him. So we've got the street light, which is something that's just on set, and then we have one light just right here. It's a small little panel LED light that's just shining straight on his face, and it's set to the same color temperature as the street light. So what it does is it makes you, because in the shot you can see the street light, you initially just kind of in your head assume that the light that you're seeing is coming from that street light. And so what we're doing here is just enhancing a practical light, because if we were just to use the street light, you wouldn't be able to see his face very well. You would get this outline and these highlights, but all of this would be in complete darkness, and you wouldn't really get a lot of that detail on his face. And for a shot like this, we wanted to show that detail. This is a very, very big thing when shooting low light, is sometimes you can take a light that's already on set and then augment it with your own lights and essentially just enhance the practicals to make it look as though the light is coming from, you know, that main source that people can see, but then you're essentially enhancing it and making it look better, and it's kind of hiding, it's basically hiding what you're doing, because people will kind of assume that, oh, this is light coming from the street light, when in reality it's light that you can control, light that you can shape and make look really good. This next one I want to look at is the wide shot, and there was a kind of a main issue that I was having is when we were on set and we were monitoring it, it looked really dark and I couldn't super like make out the outline of the house, which when I looked at it afterwards on my big monitor, I could see it, but that's always one of those things where you want to be careful if you're looking at the monitor on set and being like, oh, I can't really see this outline of the house. It feels like it's really falling into the background, and you really want that, you know, maybe add some light and augment it. So again, we're doing basically the same thing as we did with that last shot. So some of the light here is from the street light, but most of this, especially stuff that's hitting here and this rock, and then what's hitting the house right here, this is all coming from a light that's positioned right behind this car. We're using the car to hide the light here. And there's a light that's shooting this way, and it's hitting the house, so it's illuminating a little bit of that. We then also had a lamp set up right here on this window to kind of give some light there. And then we've also got this side light on this part of the house. And in the actual film, he walks around to the side of the house, so you've got this pocket of light that he kind of walks towards. This light just helps to illuminate the house and show kind of where he is. And then the street right now, all of this light that's coming here is actually from a car, which is about to pass by. If you've seen the film, you know what happens here. And so we're getting light from that. But then again, we're taking the practical light, and we know, obviously from the previous shot, from the context of that, we know there's a street light here. So this light feels entirely normal, and you would think just by watching it that this is coming from the street light, but no, we've actually added a light in here to bring up the overall light in the scene to keep it from being too dark, because again, the street light really was too dark for the scene, and there was none of this light like this. There was nothing. We were getting nothing on the house, and I really wanted to make sure you could see the house, because again, on the monitor, I'm looking at it going, I can't quite tell. This looks really dark. There's no detail anywhere. We have this one window, but I didn't really like that because it's kind of pulling the interest away. So if you have multiple pockets of light, now, obviously, you know, one thing would be like, well, maybe if we had just had this pocket of light, it would have pulled all of the interest that way. But I don't mind the light that's kind of spilling on the house here, because that's just generally illuminating. It doesn't feel like a spot point that's like really highlighting something. This window, maybe a little bit too bright. I might have diffused that. If I could do this again, I would probably close the shade and kind of have it diffused through the house. So you're getting a little bit of light, but it's not pulling the viewer's attention. Obviously, a lot of this is kind of solved once he starts walking this way, and so that's where the blocking comes into play, and that shifts the focus over to this pocket of light here. So creating those pockets of light is also a really important technique when shooting low light, because you can create these areas, you know, where you've got, if you add a light here, we're getting a bunch of light that's highlighting our main subject, but then we've also got so many pockets of this darkness that's obviously giving the contrast and giving this low light look, while also not making it like it's not too dark, but it's not too bright either, and you've got this nice balance with all these pockets of light. Now, for all of the shots that happen around this door on the side of the house, we are literally just using this light right here. There's no augmentation going on. There's, I guess, technically in a later shot, but that's more when the door is open, but for all the sequences when the door is closed, it's this light right here. Now, I did have a bit of a problem with this light, and I wasn't really able to solve it. So as we can kind of see here, it is creating this nice silhouette, especially in this shot. We're getting a good silhouette, so we can clearly see the subject, and that's good. And we're getting enough light here to where the shot's visible, it's not underexposed, and it looks clear. But this light is clearly blown out. Like it is just too bright, and the way I had to expose for the subject basically made it so that this light was going to be blown out. And it's fine. Blowing out a light is fine if it's like the bulb, because that is like the brightest part. You want to really avoid this happening right here, where we have this wall here that's just completely blown out, because that just doesn't look really good, and it kind of makes your stuff look a little amateur. The ideal scenario here is I have a controllable LED bulb light that I can swap this light out for, because this was just the light that was, you know, on the house. But they make these bulb lights that you can control. I know Nanlite makes them, Aputure makes them, and you can control the intensity of them. And one option would just be to use that, and you could dim it down to whatever you need. Another option is if you dim it down to the point where you're not clipping, but then it's too dark, you could dim that down and then actually pump in light, and that would look better. But when you're fighting with a practical light like this, it really makes things kind of tricky. So this is an instance where sometimes a piece of gear is actually the way to solve it. I really wish on a shoot like this I would have had one of those bulbs. I don't have one, but I definitely will be looking to buy some in the future. But this is just one of those things where sometimes that's what happens. The biggest piece of advice for a situation like this is just try to not show it as much as possible. Obviously the nice thing is that for this shot, for the start of it, we're focused on the back of his head, and that's kind of out of focus, but then later in the shot, it does linger on it a little bit too much, and I think if we'd have framed it a little differently, gotten a separate take, and maybe tried to do it a little differently, we could have avoided having this really blown out light in the shots. But ultimately, I'm not, you know, it's fine. It kind of is what it is. This was a one night shoot, and we were doing it super quick, so we kind of worked with what we had, and I think that the biggest thing here is that we had enough light on our subject, and that was clear. This light being blown out is more of just an unfortunate circumstance type thing. Okay, so then when he comes around to the backyard, we've got kind of an interesting lighting setup here. So if I'm gonna skip ahead real quick. So if we look at this shot from later in the sequence, we can see these these lights that are strung up, and they kind of went around the patio. And so that's giving a decent amount of light. And then we also have a light that's off screen here that's pumping in some light kind of as a fill on him. It's lighting up the table here, and it's lighting up him. This was one lighting setup that I do think I wish I'd done differently. Maybe not even the lighting setup, but the framing of these shots. Now, with this shot in particular, he's going to walk towards this door. So I liked this framing because it was able to show like two actions in one shot instead of having to cut between two angles. But what that also did is that because of the way we had the lighting set up, it makes this shot kind of flat because the light is hitting him directly in front, and then you've got this light in the back. And the nice thing is that you still get contrast because these doors are, you know, the inside of the house is just completely dark. And then you've also got the black like detective jacket that he's wearing, which is giving not only good contrast as far as like levels go, but then it's also creating a good silhouette of him. So all of that is good, but I think the fact that it's front lit just doesn't look amazing. And if we jump back to the shot before this, you can see we had this super nice sunset light that was in the background here, and I kind of wish I had framed more shots facing that way so that we could see that a little bit more, and maybe just changed up the way that we kind of cut the sequence together and gotten more shots facing that way, because then we would have had a little bit more backlighting, and the contrast I think would have been a lot nicer for stuff like that. So like if we look at just this first image here, we're really, that light that I said in the last shot, it's still on, but he's so far away from it that it's giving barely any light. Most of what we're getting is coming from the top lights, those like bulbs that are strung up on the patio, and that's most of what we're getting, and it's mostly top lighting. And then we've already got, you know, so we've got some nice shadows on his face here, and then it's lighting this side of his face. And then again, you know, we had this nice like sunset, more blue hour, it was a little bit past sunset light in the background. And I think if I'd have been able to focus more on that and frame the shots a little bit differently, this sequence could have worked better. And so when we flip back to this shot again, it just looks a little flat. If you look at it, you know, all the diagram and whatnot, it just looks a little flat. And I feel like this could have been done better. This is like the one area that I think could definitely have been improved a lot. Now, this silhouette shot, in a way, kind of shows what I was talking about. So we now have the camera facing out towards, you know, where that sunset was, and more out towards the street, and we're getting this just super dramatic, super crazy silhouette shot. And if we can see, so right here, this is the actual light that we were using that's like pumping in all of that extra light. It kind of blends in because you've got this plant in front of it that's breaking it up, and then you've also got all of the little other like practical lights that are on set. So literally this is an instance of hiding the light in plain sight. So it's there, but you don't notice that it's a light. It's just, I mean, you notice that it's a light, but it doesn't register as like, oh, that's like a film light. Like that's something that shouldn't be in the shot because it's being obscured by a bunch of different things. So this is an example of kind of knowing what you're going for when it comes to low light and going, all right, we don't really need to expose for the, like we're going for a silhouette shot. So all of this can just stay in darkness. And then we're gonna just expose for the background. And so we've got, again, low light isn't no light. So we've got all of this light hitting the patio and then going in the background. And then it's helping to just push him into darkness because the inside of the house at this point doesn't have any light in it. And if we jump ahead, then you switch angles and you see there is light coming through the window. So this is one single light that's outside, and it's just beaming light in through this window, and that's lighting up the whole room, and it's giving a lot of things. There's a lot of things that it's doing here. So we're getting texture because it's shooting through a window, so you can see like these like shapes over here on the wall, and then like here you're getting like this like square shape right here. You're getting this line up here that's doing it's just all adding these different like textures. You can look here where there's plants that it's reflecting off of, and it's really adding texture and dimension to the image. And it just, looks really, really nice. And this is again where like you can have, I mean, there's still good contrast because with these shadows like in the pantry and then obviously on his face and this side of him, because there's no light really coming from the left side of the image, it's all from the outside. And so we're still getting contrast, but you're still able to see everything. And that's a big thing, is it's like you still want, again, you can do low light without having there be no light. So now this shot, we again run into the same situation with this bulb. So as we can see, it's just blown out and it's overexposed and it doesn't really look that good. Luckily, this shot has different focus. So what we're also doing is obviously you see this red light coming in. We've just got a red light that is inside the garage here that's, you know, just hitting him, and it's hitting him straight on because that then keeps this half of him in darkness and then it lights up this half. So this is an instance where front lighting can still look good and still be useful based on how you position the camera. So technically this is sort of front lighting if you look at it that way, because the light is hitting him from the front, but it looks good and there's a lot of contrast because of the camera's position, because from the camera's position, it's coming from more the side and you're seeing the contrast on the back of his body. So to sum it up, what you really want to focus on when shooting low light scenes is keeping things clear, and sometimes it's always a good idea to get more light than you need on set and then bring it down in post, because that's overall usually going to give you a cleaner image. Obviously, there is a point where you can have too much light and it can just not look like low light. So I think the biggest thing is keeping the light on what you want the audience to be focusing on, or, you know, kind of creating pockets of light so that you still get contrast, but essentially making sure that your subject is well exposed and you can let other areas be super dark and have those harsher shadows. This can help to create a low light look that is still visually clear and doesn't let your audience get lost and have a hard time seeing what's going on, while also giving you that contrasty low light look that you want. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.